Hi everybody, it's Jenny from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. Take a look at this fun quilt behind me. Isn't this awesome? So this is a coin quilt. It is made, these are called, when you stack up fabrics like this, it's called coins. And this is also a coin, but when we got it all together on this gorgeous fabric, it looked more like outer space something. So we called it solar flare. So let me show you how to make this quilt. So to make this quilt, you're going to need one roll of 2.5-inch strips and one packet of 5-inch squares of the same fabrics. And we use Florigraphics 5 by Jason Yenter for In the Beginning fabrics. You're going to need some background fabric, about 2 yards, and it will make all these that the spheres sit on, and also this first inner border out here. Your outer border is 1.5 yards, and it's a nice big 6-inch border. So look at the back of this quilt. Isn't this gorgeous? Such a pretty back. Now, if you use 45-inch fabric, you're going to need 5.25 yards. But if you want to use a 108 piece of backing, you're just going to need 2 3/4. Now, there's a few more things you're going to need. You're going to need a little heat and bond. That's what we've attached these circles with. And you're going to need a 5-inch ruler. We used this Circle Magic ruler for our 5-inch squares. Honestly, you can use, when I start looking for a circle, I head to my cupboards first because I'm looking for a cup or whatever it is that's the size I want. We happen to use our Circle Magic template, and it's just 5 inches and it works perfectly for this. So let me show you how to make it. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your roll apart, and you're actually going to need 2 extra strips. So a roll has 40 strips in it. We need 42. So we cut 2 off of our border fabric and threw them in with our roll because you need 42 strips for this. And so on this, what we did with our strips was we kind of paired them in threes, lights and darks, mixed them up, and we just sewed them together 1/4 inch right down the side, and sewed 3 strips together just like this and pressed them however you want. They don't match up with anything, so it doesn't really matter how you press them. My seams are all going one direction, but if you want them open, you know, whatever you want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to measure how tall these are, and they should be 6.5-ish, but however tall they are, that's how wide we're going to cut them because we want squares. And so I'm going to look at mine, and mine are going to be cut 6.5. And so the first thing I'm going to do right here is I'm going to cut off my selvage edge right here, and I'm going to make sure these are lined up nice and even. So I'm cutting off my selvage edge, and I'm going to come in here because my bottom piece has some deeper selvages. All right, now what we're going to do is we're going to come over 6.5 inches. So I'm at 5 here, 6.5. And we're going to cut this whole strip, and we're going to cut the whole thing into these little squares like this. And we are going to do that with all of our strip sets. So you'll just keep those in a pile, and you'll end up with a pile of these. We're going to set these aside, and then we're going to move on to our little sphere blocks like this. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take our round circle, and we're going to put it on the paper side of our heat and bond. And we're going to draw a circle like this. So see how I have this circle here? I've drawn it on here, and then we're just going to kind of roughly cut it out. Now, I'm actually going to cut this out just a little bit around the edge of the circle, because if you're cutting a 5-inch circle out of a 5-inch piece of fabric, you got to get it pretty close, and we don't want to get this stuff on our iron. So I'm just going to kind of use my rotary cutter and trim around this like that. So out of your heat and bond, you're going to cut 41 of these. You're going to trace and cut about 41 of these, and I'm going to move this off to the side. And then you're going to take your background fabric right here, and you're going to cut a 6.5-inch strip because we want our blocks to match our strip set because they're all going to go together. And so I've cut a 6.5-inch strip here, and let me cut a couple of squares off of that. So I'm going to line this up. Whenever I cut fabric that's selvage to selvage, I always keep it folded, and because it makes it easier for me to, you know, I'm not dealing with my ruler way out here. So, so here I have 5 inches, 6.5, and I always count it out like that to make sure that I'm not getting it wrong, because it's a lot of squares to cut, 41 exactly, and so I'm cutting 2 at a time by doing that. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to iron our heat and bond onto the back of our 5-inch circle, and I'm going to pick one here, pretty one. and it goes on the back. Remember, you're ironing your heat and bond on the back. Now, if you have a lot hanging over and you don't want that to get on your ironing mat, you just want to make sure that you trim that up a little bit. All right. So it's just a few seconds of pressing. It doesn't take very long at all. And then I'm going to cut this out with my scissor. I could actually use my circle and my rotary cutter, but I find this is just as easy. So we're going to trim this out like this. Stay on the lines. All right. So now we should have a pretty decent looking circle, and we're just going to peel that paper off the back. And I do it by folding it over like this and just kind of running my thumbnail along it. And it just lifts up and comes off. And then I'm going to center this. I'm just going to eyeball it. You can fold your square in half twice, and you can do that if you want to, and eyeball it up, fold your circle in half, you know, but mine, I seem to be able to get them pretty close to the center, and I'm not worried about perfection. I don't think anybody's going to come measure my circle, so I'm okay with how this looks, and I think that it looks pretty centered, so I'm going to use my iron, and I'm going to press. I'm not going to move my iron back and forth. I'm just going to press and hold it for a few seconds because we want it to stay on there. And then we want to sew this edge down. Now what I did on these right here, you can see, I did a little zigzag. Now because there is a whole bunch of different colors of fabric in this line, I'm using invisible thread. When I use invisible thread up here on the top, I just leave my regular bobbin in. It's my regular white bobbin. I don't know if you've ever tried to wind a bobbin with invisible thread, but it does not work very well. So leave your regular bobbin in, and then we're going to sew on the top. So I have this set up for a zigzag, and I'm just going to sew. And what I'm looking for with my zigzag is I don't want it to be too big, but I want it to, I have my needle right on the edge where it comes in next to the fabric, and I want that zigzag to cross over on both sides. So it's catching the whole thing. And so I'm going to watch my zigzag, and I'm just going to keep my fabric like right toward the middle and watch that it keeps crossing over. You can go as fast or slow as you want. But with that invisible thread, it's so nice because you don't have to change your thread with every single square. And if you get off a little bit, nobody will know because it's invisible. All right, there we go. We're back to the beginning. Now this is a tiny little zigzag. I'll see if you can see it here. Let me cut this off here. And it just looks perfect. You know, I would have never used a zigzag pattern. I would have always done the applique stitch where it comes in and grabs it. But you know what? Lori Holt uses a zigzag stitch, and her applique is gorgeous. So I started using some of those on mine, and I just think it looks beautiful. So now that you have all your blocks made, the fun part is up to you in putting them together. They're all the same size, so you can literally do whatever you want. But to make it simple for my brain, what I did was I did one block that was a 4-patch. So it had a coin block and the sphere and a coin block and a sphere, just like this. The other one has, let's see, here's one right here. So there's 1, 2 coins on this side and coins on this side with only one sphere. And so let me show you what I'm talking about. So what we did here is I have this together right here. Now one of the things that tripped me up was the coins. To get this look, the coins all have to stay horizontal. And so as we're putting it together, we can make one block set that looks like this. And then you can turn it so that the sphere is in this corner or in this corner, but your coins are all still going to line up. That's the look you're going for. So basically, we're giving you creative license to play with these however you like. You can do them in 4 patches. You can do them with 3 strip blocks to 1. Turn them however you want. We'll have a diagram for you to make it easy if you want to, but go ahead and play and have some fun with this on your own. So basically, we've got 10 blocks across of our 6-inch blocks, and 12 blocks down. 120 blocks makes a quilt that's 73 by 85. Oh, and we quilted this in meandering squares. And I think anytime you have something that's round, It's just really fun to put something that has edges on it and squares like that. It gives it this really modern feel. I really enjoyed making this, and we hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial on the Solar Flare quilt from the Missouri Star Quilt Company. We hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you are not already part of the Missouri Star Quilt family, you can hit the subscribe button below so you won't miss a thing. And if you click that bell, it'll notify you every time a new tutorial comes out. See you next Friday.